Under the wide sweep of the evening sky, the prairie lay in a hush that made every footstep sound like a trespass. Dust clung to the hem of Eliza Ray's faded calico dress, each grain a memory of the road she'd walked since morning. She carried little, just a bundle tied in a worn cloth, but the weight of it was nothing compared to the shame on her back. Behind her, the town she'd left would already be talking, voices darting like wasps, each sting meant to make sure she never returned. Ahead, the silhouette of a ranch house rose against the last streaks of gold, and beside it stood the giant rancher, Cole Mercer, broad-shouldered and still as a fence post set deep in the earth. When she stopped at the edge of his yard, he didn't move closer. He just looked at her with those dark, measuring eyes and said, "Stay one night, and you won't want to let me go." It wasn't a flirtation. It was a warning, spoken low and even, as if he knew something she didn't. Her first thought was to turn back. She had no reason to trust him, and every reason not to. But the road behind was empty and growing colder by the minute, and the sun was falling fast. She swallowed hard, gave the smallest nod, and stepped over the line where the wild grass turned to the hard-packed dirt of his yard. He turned without another word, boots scuffing the porch boards as he led her inside. The smell hit her first: wood smoke, bread cooling somewhere unseen, the faint sharpness of leather oil. A clock ticked in the corner, steady and sure, and something in her chest began to loosen despite her better judgment. Cole spoke little as he set a loaf of bread and a pot of stew on the table. She sat, hunger pushing past pride, and ate in small, careful bites. His gaze was steady, not prying but assessing, the way a man might watch the weather before deciding whether to bring in the herd. When he finally asked how she'd come to be walking the road at dusk, she hesitated. The words tasted bitter even before they left her mouth. The family she'd worked for accusing her of encouraging the sheriff's nephew, the shouting, the hands that pushed her out the door, the crowd of eyes that watched and believed the worst. Cole's jaw flexed once, a muscle jumping near his temple, but he said nothing more. Instead, he poured her a cup of milk and changed the subject to where she might sleep. The room he gave her was small, but to Eliza it felt like a place cut from another life. A quilt smelling faintly of cedar lay across the bed, and through the open window, the night air carried the scent of sage and cooling dust. She was just beginning to drift when a sound pulled her upright. Hoofbeats, slow and deliberate, not far from the barn. She crept to the window and saw two men in the dim lantern glow, their faces turned toward the house. Cole stepped out barefoot, a shotgun cradled easy in his arms, and the men shifted in their saddles before riding off without a word. He didn't glance toward her window, but she stepped back anyway, her heartbeat loud in her ears. By morning, the weather was clear and warm, the kind that would make the town seem almost gentle from a distance. Cole told her they'd need supplies, and she followed him into town. Inside the general store, conversation thinned to a hush. Ruthie Talbot, sharp-eyed and quick-tongued, made a show of looking Eliza up and down before turning to another woman and saying loud enough to carry, "Girls don't end up at Cole Mercer's place unless they mean to stay." Eliza's cheeks burned, but she kept her eyes on the shelves. Sheriff Amos Dole appeared near the counter, his smile thin as wire. "Guess some folks don't mind damaged goods," he said, as if he were remarking on the weather. Cole didn't answer, but when they stepped outside, his hand rested briefly on her shoulder, warm and grounding. "Let 'em talk," he said. "Truth don't come from their mouths anyway." Back at the ranch, Eliza offered to mend a tear in his shirt, and he accepted without hesitation. They worked side by side in the barn, him fixing a stubborn hinge, her stitching neat lines through worn cloth. He told her, without drama, about losing his wife years ago, and she told him, quieter still, that she'd never had a place where she could leave her things without wondering if they'd be thrown out. He didn't answer right away, only passed her a spool of thread when she reached for it, as though the gesture itself was an agreement. By dusk, a lone rider appeared, dust trailing behind him. Milo Crow, a one-eyed drifter with a smile that didn't often reach his good eye, swung down and spoke to Cole in low tones. Eliza pretended not to listen, but the words drifted over. The sheriff was coming with papers, claiming she owed a debt for a ruined reputation. Her hands went cold. "I can't go back," she said when Cole finally told her straight. "I'd rather sleep in the dirt." He studied her for a long, quiet moment, then said, "You should know something." His voice was low, almost reluctant. "That night they said you brought it on yourself? I was there. I saw the boy try to corner you in the alley. I pulled him off and beat him bloody. His family's been looking to settle the score ever since." She stared at him, the ground shifting under her. "Bringing you here wasn't chance," he added. "It was me saying, 'over my dead body.'" The words were still ringing in her ears when the sound of hooves broke the evening calm. Sheriff Dole rode up with 2 deputies, their faces shadowed under their hats. Cole stepped onto the porch, unarmed but filling the space like a wall. "You've got no claim here," he told the sheriff. Papers were waved, words exchanged, low at first, then sharper. Eliza's fingers tightened on the edge of the quilt she'd been mending. At last, Dole looked from Cole to her, a smile twisting his mouth. "Next time, Mercer, I won't come asking." He turned his horse, the others following, and the sound of hooves faded into the dark. Inside, Cole set another quilt on her bed, his voice even. "Stay another night, Eliza Ray. You might just find you've been home all along." She didn't answer right away. Her shame had burned away in the sheriff's gaze, replaced by something steadier, trust, fragile but real. Outside, the wind moved through the cottonwoods, whispering a sound like the turning of a page. And in the quiet that followed, it felt, for the first time, like a page that belonged to her. Sometimes, the place you fear most is the place you were meant to stand in. And sometimes, one night is enough to teach a soul its worth more than the world ever told it was. Which city are you watching our video from? Please leave a comment. Please subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you.